Good afternoon, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. It's the last Tuesday in the month of May, and no, I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's a very special day. I wonder if you can tell me why it's special. Anybody wants to give me a little hint of why it's special? I must apologize for the late start. Technical difficulties. We're going to get there where we're just running smoothly from the very start. So, my apologies for that. I'm going to tell you a little later why it's special, the month of May 2023. I think you might be getting an idea, but if you don't remember, I'll definitely remind you as the program goes along. I want to welcome everyone to our It Is Possible Tuesday session for the month of May. I have a very special guest with me, and you will be excited to learn her story. A woman of many features, a woman of many layers, a multifaceted woman who has risen in the corporate world. And we're going to hear her story. But before we hear her story, I'd just like to remind you that God says He has plans for us. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for prosperity and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. My guest this afternoon is someone that I've known for many, many years. And it's interesting that I met her and then I happened to be employed at the same place that her mother worked at, the great Woolmer's Boys School. This afternoon, my guest I knew her as Cecile Dennis. She's now Dr. Cecile Dennis. I want to welcome Dr. Cecile Dennis to It Is Possible Tuesdays. Welcome, Cecile. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for the warm welcome.
Oh, can't do anything other than that. Now, Cecile, we met when we were in uni. You and I happen to have been on the same hall. Do you remember that
The,
wonderful, the greatest hall in the
the
history
only
of
hall that
the
says,
only
know
hall,
thyself.
the only hall in the entire
Urban
university,
Hall.
Irving Hall.
I hope,
Yes. So
I hope I won't offend anybody else. The only other hall is Assembly Hall where we sat exams, right?
exactly. Oh, yes. Those are some good times. Now, Cecile, I want to take you back.
Yes.
You're now Dr. Cecile Dennis, but I want to take you back to when you were a child, when you were not Dr. Cecile, you were a daughter and you were a sister. Tell me about that. Where were you born? What was your family life like?
Okay, so I was actually born at the University Hospital, but my parents, both of whom were teachers, lived in Spanish Town, I believe. And I think I
Mm.
recall hearing my mom say that she stayed with a friend somewhere in Vineyard Town so that she would be near to the
Ah.
hospital.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
So I am the second of five children. Three girls came first and then twin brothers. And yeah, and the girls were like 2 years apart, almost exactly 2.5 years apart. That was called family planning. And then the boys arrived pretty close to my sister, my second sister. So they're only like a year apart. Um, very strong set of growing up with values, strong values, both parents being teachers. We were taught about working hard, working diligently, not taking shortcuts. Um, Honesty is the best policy. There were some values that we got. And we learned that in the middle of all of that, we had the best examples of parents who were givers. So they didn't just give of themselves in terms of, teaching, sharing knowledge. They gave physically. Anybody in need, we were required to share, and so on. So I grew up with an understanding that giving was natural. And as I got older and got, I'd like to say, a better understanding closer to the scriptures, we all learned that it's not just better to give than to receive, but that in giving you receive, and you receive in multiples. So that was the setting. Life was not, we weren't rich, but I didn't think we were poor. We were just normal country folks, living a good, clean life, eating from the farm because my dad farmed as well. He farmed, always did backyard farming. So we grew up on a lot of greens and natural stuff. And then he changed jobs, and we moved to Kingston, and that's when you and I met shortly after, because I actually did my sixth form at Wilma's Girls and then transitioned to UE, and that's when you and I met.
Yeah.
So,
No, no, just sorry, Sissy. You spoke about country living. You said your parents might have been living in St. Catherine. So which school did you attend?
all right.
Um,
So listen to the journey. So my parents were living in St. Catherine, I think Greendale, and and I was born at UE. But a few months after I was born, my father was appointed to his first principal job, which was the principal for Buff Based Secondary School in Portland. So at 6 months old, I moved to Portland. When I moved to Portland, when the family moved, I was 6 months old. And we spent 9 years in Portland. But in between those 9 years, I lived with my grandmother in East Kingston for between 3 and 4 years, because
mhm.
my dad preferred us to go to school, a particular school. So we lived with her, and then we went back to Portland for about a year and a half, after which he changed his jobs and we went to live in Manchester, right?
Yes.
So all my high school years were at Bishop Gibson High School in Mandeville. Incidentally,
Yes.
my dad is from South Manchester, both of them.
Mm,
So he was
really?
comfortable going back to Manchester, near to his mother, who at the time was getting elderly and so on. We didn't even see her as that, because, we would spend summers with her, and it was the greatest times of our life. My summer was spent trashing corn, fanning pimento, raking pimento, um, picking mangoes. Yeah,
Mhm.
picking mangoes. I still love common mangoes to this day. And we played outdoor games. And it's funny, it's a time that I loved, yet still, my grandmother lived in a wattle and daub house, literally. And
Wow.
the toilet was outside. It was a pit latrine. And I'm getting real deep Jamaican now. At night,
Yeah.
you use a chamber pot, which we call a
Oh,
chimney,
yes. Mhm.
and her
Feel.
food was always cooked on coal stove, and her food was like the greatest food of all times. The chicken was just totally seasoned. She did not have a refrigerator yet. Still, whatever hour you got there, there was food. It was warm. The greatest time of our life. Just,
Good.
sorrel and, you know 17
Yeah.
degrees,
Organic.
15 degrees temperature. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Organic
so so
food.
that give you an idea. But I went to all my high school is in Mandeville, and
Man,
then we
yeah.
moved to
Back to
Kingston.
now, you went to Bishop Gibson High School for girls. Tell me about that experience.
Okay, so those of you who know the color purple know that it's all about the purple, and it's in Kingston College.
College.
It's Bishop Gibson High School. But
Let them know.
I had a wonderful time, all girls school. During the time that I went to school, I've always been a very vocal person, a vocal child who got quite a number of licks from my grandmother for being brazen and what she called forward. Then I went to school, and although I respected the rules, there were times when I challenged the rules. Um, Rightfully so, when things didn't seem right or it appeared as though there was an absence of justice. I challenged the rules,
Yes.
I challenged the teachers. Very often, I prepared for the class. And so if the teacher made an error, I was quick to challenge the point and to point out the error and so on. And in that era, it may not have been the best thing for a child. So I
Mhm.
think I may have been born in the wrong era. But um, the school was a school of strong values, strong Christian values, based Anglican based, but strong values, and very good teachers. So at that school, I learned Spanish, for example, and enjoyed it, and continued all the way to advanced level, to the point where I can speak Spanish fairly fluently, and I have actually stepped in to assist in a situation where a Jamaican in the tourist industry who knew no Spanish tried to communicate with somebody who only knew Spanish. So, all rounded school, and we did sports and we did, my school did very, very well. It was one of the top schools in central Jamaica and the number one school in languages, Spanish and French. My mom taught there, so you understand the trauma that she went through, having a very vocal, non-compliant child at times. And you imagine the drama that I created by
Mhm.
breaking the rules, the more at the time, the norm. Children must be seen
Yes.
and heard. Oh
Or not
no,
heard.
I have a voice, and very early I realized you can't beat me, you can't kill me. You go to jail so I can talk back to you respectfully.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think
so
it's important.
the
Sorry.
discipline
I
was
think it.
very strong, and um, we never went to school late. We had devotions. We had, there were just some things that were just so normal. And I find I'm able to pass those values on to my children, despite the fact that many mornings I broke the rule to get in early just because I slept late all the time. Um, my dad would wake us up at 6. He's never late, so he'd go to school. We lived on the campus, and I would get some extra sleep, and then I'd run the distance. And that I did athletics, so I ran the distance to school. And when I got to the lower gate and realized that it was really close to the bell, I jumped the wall in my uniform and I ran across the grass, and the heavy dew, really soaked the socks and the shoes. But because my name was Dennis and I'm at the top of the register,
List.
I
Yes.
could not afford to be late, and had to explain to my dad why I was late. So, learn
Yes. Yeah.
some
Yeah.
principles.
It's interesting, that you spoke about having a voice and being vocal and speaking back to the teachers. But I think what my listeners need to be aware of is that in your being vocal, you were never disrespectful. You were always respectful, but you had to have your voice heard. And I think that's something that quite a number of young people nowadays don't necessarily recognize, that they can be vocal, they can be heard without being disrespectful. So
Yes,
I just needed to let my audience know that. Now,
yes,
Cecilia, you touched upon something that when I met you, I also learned that aspect of you. You are very much a sports person. Now, you touched on the fact that you did athletics, but athletics was not the only thing that you did. Tell us a little bit about the extracurricular activities at school for you?
All right. So my mom was the Girl Guide leader. So I was a part of the Girl Guides group, and it was a very exciting club. We learned a lot of stuff. For example, um, I never forgot. We learned about knots, tying knots,
Yep.
slip
Sleep.
knots, you know, um,
Yes.
all kinds of knots,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the
Fisherman,
usefulness,
no.
yes, the usefulness of knots and the circumstances under which, even something as simple as rescue. So we learned a lot of that. We learned the motto for Girl Guides was be prepared, and I hold that until now. Be prepared. And for those persons who get emails from me, will see at the bottom, knowledge is power. Because if you, and absolute knowledge is absolute power, because in negotiating any position, and all my life I've negotiated, I negotiated for myself, for classmates, for my siblings,
Yes.
for persons out there who were met with injustice. So I wanted to do law, but I didn't get in initially, and I was disappointed. And I chose to do international relations, but I find myself today in a role of advocacy. But in terms of the sports, I played table tennis, and I eventually played table tennis for Jamaica. And my dad was my coach. So you imagine a very strict coach, a strict person, but it brought us so close. It brought us so close. And um, I played many, many, many games, and he was only missing from one ever. And that's because I was selected to represent Jamaica, and I traveled to Barbados, and he didn't travel. So in my lifetime, he has only missed one game. And I'm sure if it was a time of streaming, he'd be on now, because at age 87, he's with it. And
Yes.
it gave me the kind of relationship, daughter father relationship, that is missing from a lot of lives now. Boys never came near because my dad was always nearby. That's a plus and a minus. I had to say to them, he's not going to bite you. You can still come and talk to me. But I look back today at a lot of the problems that we have, teenage pregnancies, assaults, just the negative experiences. And I think back at the closeness I had with my father. I had that relationship that never pushed me anywhere to seek love outside of this kind of relationship. And my father is still yet, for me, the best example of the love of a father to a mother, a husband to a wife, and a father to a child. My father would do things like I'd go look for him even my adult stage, and he'd have corn, and he'd boil the corn, and he take the corn on a platter. And I said to him, I would say to him, did you put butter on it, Daddy? And he said, oh no, let me get the butter. And I remember a friend of mine saying, you're spoiled. And I said, oh no, my dad loves me.
Yes,
He
yes.
knows. And growing up as well, I will say this very cautiously and humbly, because um, I excelled at school, and that was a challenge for teachers, because the normal thing is, if you're given problems in school, you should really have low grades, but you're given
Mhm.
problems,
And you
and your grades
excel?
up. Because I never finished. I think only once in high school I finished third in my class. I was like first or second, because daddy was also a disciplined person. So when he never slept late, he went to bed early, and he never slept late. So when he got up at 3 to mark papers or prepare his lessons, I got up with him, and I studied. And he'd put music on. I had a music box in my room. Yeah, I'm spoiled. And he played, but we listened to classics. We listened to jazz. We listened to good healthy, wholesome music. We listen to Christian music. I still have an album that I got when I was age 7 from my dad's friend, Godfrey Gregory. And one of the songs it's all children. It's a children choir, and it says, Jesus, I believe what you said to me. Oh, I know you won't forsake me. Oh, you'll never let me down. I can still hear the children singing, and that it still has that music, that turntable. And we listen to these songs. And
Yes.
so I never finished less than second in my class. And, CXC was very good. But when I got to A levels, we had a turning point, we had a situation that really distressed me mentally. Now I look back, I realize I was distressed and so on. And so when I did A levels, I failed some of them on my first attempt. And it was the first time ever I was failing in my life. And my dad came to my rescue. I have to say that. My dad came to my rescue.
Well, now, let me ask you, your first time failing something, what did that do to your confidence and how did your dad come to your rescue?
So let me tell you what happened. Um, my father was in a job, and he was being asked to do some things that he felt were unethical and immoral. And he said, I won't do it. So they said, well, we can't work with you. And they fired him. They fired him from the job. And we were living in a home that was assigned by the job. So they gave us 2 weeks to leave, and it was the hardest thing. We couldn't find anywhere. As for the first time in our lives as a family, we were split up. So my mom and my dad went to stay at my brother's with a friend, and my, I went to my grandmother. Me and my younger sister, Georgia, was in college. It was the hardest time. So we couldn't concentrate. I couldn't concentrate, and then we got somewhere to live. And by then it was a little late. I got the results and I passed Spanish and the what they call it, general paper, but I failed history and I failed econ.
Mm.
And I was alone at home and I was crying. And he heard me crying. And he came to the door and he looked. And I didn't realize he was there. Even this many years later,
But
it brings
it,
tears.
yes, it's, yeah, the power of the bond.
So he said to me, I know it's hard and I know you expect it to pass, but you can try again. He said, A level is a little difficult and you can try again and you will pass. And so he got a job at Exed. And
Yes.
very soon, 1 month later, he got this job at Exed. And because he was working at Exed, I was able to go there at no cost. And Michelle had matriculated. And he introduced me to, I don't remember her name, Miss Dr. Powell. And she said, we were trying to decide what subjects to do. And she said, why don't you do sociology? And I said, what's that? And she gave me a
Lambos,
summary.
Harold
And
Lambos.
the long and short is that I made up my mind. Got in a group of friends. I sat in the first class and I listened to everybody. I said, I want that girl, that guy, these
Mm-hmm.
people in my class. And we got together, and that year was like, a super year. I
Yes.
I got a distinction in sociology doing a 2-year course in 1 year.
1 year.
I got a
Yes.
distinction in econ. And that's when I went to UE, and that's when I met you.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you
But
know, um, I held on to that moment because I learned from my father that under no circumstance you should compromise your values, and that hard things could happen, but you got to hold on to those values. And it's something I've done. And last year, I walked away from a job because I was not going to compromise my values. And
Yes.
guess what?
Yes.
I checked. I was the same age that my dad was when he walked away from that job,
Wow. Wow. Talk about
and
circle.
my daughter
Yes.
cried. She didn't, she kind of, she cried for other reasons. But
Yes.
I
But
told her that we trust God. We will not compromise. We will not compromise our values, our standards, right? And I told her also that I am a good person to people, and good
yes.
people will come our way. And
Yes.
a lot of things happen. Um, when I left the job, I had $17,000 in my account. My mortgage was not paid. My bills were not paid. My son's school fee was not paid. And in 2 months, by the end of December, a friend of mine said he transferred some money. And then he called me in January to say, hey, um, the payment that the company owed us, it's signed off on. But before that, that payment came in February. But before that, I called Sagicor just talking, and my pension funds that had been transferred. She said, if you're 50, you could retire. And, and I'm like, hey, but I'm 53. She said, oh, you can retire and we'll give you a lump sum. Hey, look at God, you know? And
Look, oh
I
my.
only started this job in May. Remember, I told you I left in December.
Yes.
All my bills
Yes.
have been paid. Everything has
Amen.
been paid. So I tell people, there is nothing bad that doesn't result in something good. And you started with the scripture, for I know the plans I have for you.
I have for
We
you.
all know that
Yes.
one, but I do believe that the steps of a righteous man, a
It's
good
just
man,
appear.
are ordered by the
Ordered.
Lord. And so
Yes.
I'm looking back and I'm smiling and I'm saying, hey, who could it be? Who could it be? Who
Yes.
could it be but God?
Yes.
And so I live my life the way I know I should live it, the way I know it should be an example to the generation below
Yes.
and my generation.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I haven't said anything about my mom yet, but
Oh, let me.
behind every good man is a strong
Dorothy.
woman,
Oh,
you know?
lovely.
So
Lovely.
I've had a full life. I took some risks, some big risks. I left my full-time, safe, secure job to finish the doctorate. And that's a
Yeah.
whole story by itself, because I got to a point where I was out of money, and I smile, because I give a lot and I just know it's going to come back.
Come back. Yes.
And
Yes.
on that occasion, I prayed and I asked God not for money. I asked Him for time. And I got time miraculously. When I say miraculously, miraculously. And I finished like in the nick of time, literally. I got just enough time to finish without having to find money to register for another semester. And now,
Um,
yes, I was left with a debt, but I'm repaying that debt a little at a time. I
yes.
wrote on my paper August 31, 2022 as my finishing date. And
Great.
three persons at the university told me, you won't finish on this date. It's not
Yes.
possible. And the last person in finance said, you realize you won't be able to register for the next semester because you owe. And I said, yes. And she said, well, do you have a plan? I said, yes, I have a plan. I have a real good plan. I'll share it with you later. And when I hung up the phone from her, I said, I went down on my knees and I said, God, I need time. My plan is to work assiduously, defy the odds, and I just need time. And at the end of that semester, miraculously, we got a 1 week break. And in the 1 week, I did not speak to anyone. I worked and worked. I finished. I sent the paper through to my chair. She approved it overnight. She sent it to the second committee. He approved it overnight. And it went to the final, the chief academic officer the next day, and he approved it in 3 hours. I got approval
Verse.
August 31, 2022. And my chair later called me back to say, oh, sorry, I know I told you to put it to October, but it's August 31. Can you change back the date? And I said to her, I told you so. So,
Ah, who but
walking
God?
that road and believing is it's faith. Faith is something that tells you you believe to see. You don't see to believe. If you
Faith to
see to
believe,
believe, there's no faith.
not
But
faith.
if you
Wow.
believe to see, that's a lot of faith. That's like
Yes.
immeasurable,
Yes,
immeasurable
yes,
faith.
yes, 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 yes. Cecile, you talk about your faith because you have experienced it. You have a relationship with God, and it's obvious.
Yes.
You say you fell on your knees and you prayed and you
Mhm,
said to God, "I
mhm.
need time," and it was a miracle. And only somebody who has a relationship with God can speak it into being, and the Lord hears, because the Lord says he's not talking about ears being stopped up, and he says any good thing that we desire, we should ask of him. And you did. You
We
went
have
boldly
not.
to him. Yes,
We
because we
have
asked
not
not.
because we ask not.
Yes,
And
yes,
I ask big things, this
of
morning.
course.
I sent a text to my friend because we grew up. My mom is such a giver. My dad doesn't speak much,
Yes, yes, I know.
he
Quiet.
doesn't speak much. I've been in a game and arguing with the umpire. It was my point. It's my point. How could you give it
Yes,
to the opponent?
yes,
And I look way up in the stands and I see a finger
yes, yes,
and I
yes,
stop. And at the end of the game, reluctantly, I went to my dad and he was very, very simple, very quiet. He said, don't do that again. Would you give up a whole game? Will you get upset, lose your cool, lose your rhythm, give up a whole game for 1 point? I never forgot that. So he was not a talker. My mom was the firebrand, kind of the firebrand. And I'm my mother's. And my daughter is her mother's child.
oh,
So you
but the
can understand the
child,
challenge.
yeah, yeah,
And but she would just give and give and give. She'd give away her shoes. She'd take one pair of ours. A
yes,
student's
yes,
mom said she can't send her to school. She can't afford. She said, go over in your bed. We have to
yes,
share the space and so on.
yes, yes,
And
yes,
I met, I came upon a story of a woman who was burnt out of her home. I never met her.
yes, yes,
And
yes,
I searched for her for the last 3 weeks and I found her 2 days ago. And
yes,
so I collected stuff. And last night I drove to her home sometime after 8 p.m. after I finished teaching my class. And, it touched my heart. She was so grateful, but,
yes,
the situation. So this morning I wrote my friend a note because she's a manager at courts. And I
yeah.
said to her,
You got the
Charlene,
fridge.
well, I'm getting it. I don't see it yet, but it's coming. I said, Charlene, I met someone who is burnt out. She has a 6-year-old. She doesn't have a fridge. That child needs cold drink, juice to go to
Yes,
school, and so
yeah,
on. I know you guys have scratch and dents. You have. Please tell me if I can get, when I can get
I get.
a
Yes,
low or no price refrigerator and a wardrobe for this lady. I'm asking. because
Yes.
it's there.
Yes.
It's there
Yes.
somewhere.
Yes.
So I haven't
Yes.
seen
Yes.
Charlene's answer yet, but
Yeah.
no is never an option.
Yeah,
No is
I saw
never
the
an
request.
option.
I saw the request this morning, and I said that
Yes,
is so typical of you, being Dorothy Dennis's daughter.
right.
When I went to Wolmer's within the first term, because graduation was in November. I don't July, but when I went in September, I think by the end of September, she had given me a congratulations card. I just met her and she gave me a card. I'll never forget it. I still have it, congratulating me on my graduation, and my success at becoming a member of staff. And I thought that was just so
She
remarkable.
lives. She lives for
Yes,
moments. So
yes,
even at
yes.
age 80, she's gonna be 84 on Sunday. She is the person in the family who reminds everybody whose birthday it is.
Birthday.
And she can tell you who shares that birthday internationally or nationally. So a couple of years back when she
Mm,
did her brain surgery at age
mm,
79
mm,
and 10 hours of surgery,
mm,
her head was open up. She was awake because they had to keep her awake.
yes.
And I was at the hospital, three of us, three daughters, all day. And when
Yes.
it got to 5 o'clock, that devil stepped in and I started getting nervous. And suddenly, a voice said to me, "Hey, nothing is wrong. This is fear. Get rid of it. Nothing is
Yes.
wrong because if something was wrong, you would have known already." So I went to get my daughter and came back. And the anesthesiologist was driving out and he saw me and he stopped. And he said, "Hey, your mom is okay. She's out. She's doing well. Listen,
Mm,
when we went in, she she started giving me a long list of numbers from her head,
brain surgery.
from her head. Call Titi at 962 da 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 da. Tell Titi to call Miss Brown and that. And I was confused. This is
Yes.
somebody coming out of 10
Out
hours
of
of brain
brain
surgery.
surgery. Ah,
The doctor was amazed. And then she looked at my daughter and she said, "Come here. It's the first time I'm seeing you in your uniform. And listen, don't give your mom any trouble." I'm like, coming out of brain surgery, you know. But
yes.
before she left the hospital, she asked us to get thank you cards for the
Yes. The
nurses.
nurses.
And we got the card and she wrote the card. Her handwriting was not as steady, coming out of the
Yeah.
surgery,
Yeah.
but
That's it. Yeah.
she read the card to the nurse, and the nurse was so grateful, you know. So it's something she does. She lives
Yeah.
for
That's
moments,
natural.
and
She's
she's
yes.
always
Yes.
grateful. So long before coffee, we knew that gratitude is a must universal.
Oh. Oh
Long
yes.
before,
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh
gratitude,
yes.
gratitude.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes.
life is not really
Uh,
perfect, but
uh,
life, if you have parents whose existence are values driven, and these values come from the Bible. I don't care what anybody wants to say. Values are embedded in that good book,
yes.
and you're on good footing. And yes, teach your child in the way they should grow. They won't depart from it because I'm a good
Definitely.
girl.
You
I'm a
are.
good.
And that is not. That's not pride.
Listen,
That's not pride.
listen.
That's not pride.
But
It's a
you are you.
self-awareness.
But you
Yes.
are you, and you will speak up. I find myself speaking up. Now I serve on the Legislative and Public Education Committee for the Jamaican Association on Intellectual Disability because both my brothers are intellectually challenged,
Yes.
and one was harshly dealt with by the law unfairly, just wrong, just everything was wrong. And Sanya, that I got
Yes.
in trouble in court, that I
Yes.
had
Yes.
a running fight with the judge who
Yes.
tried to
Yes.
shut me down. and I refused to be shut down.
Yes.
And I know at the end of the case, I came to be respected. There were days I walk
Yes.
in court and they thought I was a lawyer, but I
Yes.
thought I was a
Yes.
lawyer,
Yes.
but that's okay. That's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And so at the end of that case, yes, vindicated completely, but I told myself I will be the voice of the
Of the
voiceless.
voiceless.
I will
Yes.
be
Yes.
a voice for the voiceless. So we're getting
Yes.
ready now to train some judges. So yes, we are getting ready as an organization to introduce them to the laws for them to understand the
Remove the
rights of
sentence.
mentally
Persons
challenged,
with
mental,
wonderful.
intellectual disabilities,
Yes.
and so on. And we're getting ready also to do a lecture at the Jamaica Constabulary Force, because we believe also that the
That
stakeholders,
it
critical stakeholders, the police force should
need to
be
know.
included, should be
Okay.
made
Yeah.
aware, should be educated. So,
Yes.
is there a bad thing that happens? Is there no good that can come
I
from
don't.
a bad thing?
Is that thing?
And
You're a living
anger,
testimony.
the anger
Yes.
I felt initially, had me saying, we're going to sue the government, we're going to sue the government. But then, a voice said to me, if you sue the government, you will win, but other
What will be
people will
learned?
lose. Other people will not win. But if you advocate, and if this thing becomes embedded in law and you get recognition, legislative recognition, everybody wins. Everybody wins. So this is where I am at. This
Yeah,
is
big picture, not just for the moment, but for the future. You know, I'm listening to you and I have this big grin on my face, because it's you have a dream. You had a dream of becoming a lawyer. You went into international relations and you've done quite a lot of things during that time, but your spirit of advocacy and justice runs through everything that you do runs through everything that you do. And you can't just stay there for yourself. It's evident that you are a people person, you're a community person, you are someone who is thinking about the good of others. And so you've put yourself in that position. And it's interesting that your present position is that of the head of people and culture, customer service and marketing at
Oh
Paramount
no,
Trading.
I
No,
was,
no,
I,
not
I
you were.
was, I was,
Ah,
I
okay.
was. I am,
Tell me,
I am.
tell me about what you're doing now.
Well, this once I did the doctorate, I wanted to transition into academia, research,
Yes,
lecturing,
yes,
and so on. I was part-time, what they call adjunct faculty at the
yes.
University of the
UCC.
Caribbean, and
Yes,
I it's a part of my journey. Every day I talk to God like God, and this is what I want to do. Because people think
yes.
that if you prayer is conversation, but they think you must do this. But
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes
No,
I'm like,
you're talking.
hey, God, God, because God is
Yes,
everywhere. And I'm like,
yes.
no, no, Jesus, not today. Yes. And so from like 5 years ago, I set this path.
Yeah.
And if you set a path and you want to change your career, you have to work towards it. You have to build a strategy and so on. And so while I was adjunct, there were some tasks and I volunteered for some of them and so on. And, you know,
Strategic.
yeah. And so in March, I think, I got a call one day and, you know, the person who called me said, "Are you still interested in full time?" I'm like, "Yes, never died." So now I was appointed as an assistant professor here at UCC, and since I've been here, I've been engaged in many ways, And this is going to give me the opportunity to write. So my thesis was on strategies to prevent occupational fraud in the financial sector. Yes,
Yes,
straight
yes,
yes.
yes,
Interesting.
yes,
Because we
yeah.
are seeing a lot of cases. But the truth is, my dad was a strong leader, a leader who led with honesty and ethics at the base of his decisions. And I have that example, and it's missing in a lot of ways. It's just missing. Um, a lot of the problems we have is because a lot of people did not grow up with ethical values.
Our
And
values,
so
yes.
the decision to steal, to take a shortcut, even in academia, the decision to cheat, a lot of these things are embedded in values and culture and so on. So I've been writing, I've been speaking, um, I've been sharing my knowledge. I presented to, well, my mom volunteered me to come and speak to the pensioners, right? On
Yes,
some of the strategies to protect their investments. And so,
investments, yes.
having been in the banking sector and having studied fraud, I was able to combine the two to give them some hope tips.
Practical, yes, yes.
Right. So I'm on this journey, this part of the 400-meter run, where I'm on a new leg,
Yes,
and
yes.
I've gotten the baton safely, and I'm taking it around. And so, it's amazing. You have to prepare. I did say you need to have a strategy. You need to
Strategy.
have a plan. We do
And
strategic plans for organizations, and we don't do any for ourselves.
ourselves
We help
personal.
organizations to grow their business, and we just don't grow ourselves. And so I'm on a path to grow myself and in the process grow others, because you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be alone. We're
The
meant
social.
for partnerships, good partnerships.
Yes,
So
yes.
this is where I am now, and I'm loving it.
Oh,
I'm loving it.
wonderful.
I'm getting ready
Wonderful.
to publish, and
Yes.
I've getting ready for another conference. Just did one conference presenting on growing ethical corporate culture, and I'm getting there. I'm getting there, and
Oh, and you're not
and
getting there alone. You're taking people with you.
no, because
Yes.
next in July I will officially graduate. I'll be doing the ceremony, and
Yes.
my mom will be coming with me, since she was the one who said, "Who is going to do a doctorate?" She called us all.
Ah,
Aren't
yes.
any of you going to study? And I'm like,
Yes.
and looking at me, right? And asking, aren't any of you? And I'm the only person. I'm like, okay, yes. And so she started
Oh,
me on that
lovely.
journey, and my my dedication of the book, of this, the paper and so on,
So,
was
yeah.
really a lot to her, her motivation, her transmission of these values, that say work hard, strive, be the best you can be, speak up but be respectful, and speak up, um,
Yeah.
even if you have to be different, and if you have to stand out and you
Mm.
stand alone, speak up.
Yes.
These
Yes.
are values I tell my children. These are values I share. Um,
Yes.
it's easy for me to
Wow.
say to somebody, you know that what you're doing is not right, right? You know what
Yeah.
you're
But
doing is
when
not
there's,
right.
yeah,
And
the life.
I tell my children there is no shortcut to success. There's none. There's none. Do not take a shortcut. It's just gonna come back and bite you, and then it's gonna take you longer. Don't take a shortcut.
Much longer.
So
Yes.
I'm happy with where I am.
Lovely.
It's been a journey, but um, I want to say this, many, 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 many are the afflictions of
Of
the
the
righteous,
righteous.
but but
God.
God
Yes.
delivers us out of
Of-
them all. It
Amen.
doesn't say you're gonna be delivered all at once. It
Mm.
doesn't say others won't come, but it says, listen, I
Delivery.
see, I know
Deliverance.
what you can manage, I'm going to deliver you in time. So that's
Sound
where
like
I
a
wanted
preaching
to.
sister.
I'm a
Woo,
teacher, not a preacher,
exactly.
but but um, these words of encouragement are there for us. You
Yes.
draw on them. I taught my students yesterday. I shared the example because they should be using a manual, and they just won't use the manual, so they're committing a lot of writing errors. And I
Mm.
said to them, "How many people read the Bible?" And there was a long pause. And I'm like, what? None of you in here read the Bible? Yes, miss, we read the Bible. So I say, how do you read the Bible? Um, they didn't understand the question. I said, I'm not
Exactly.
going to explain it. How do you read the Bible? One of
Mm,
them said,
mm.
miss, I may start at the beginning, but depends on how I'm feeling. I might read Psalm, I might read Proverbs, you know, I might have heard a scripture and I go back to it. I said, exactly. That's how you read the manual. The manual is a reference book.
Friend's
It's
book.
a reference book, and you go to different sections based on the relevance of what's happening to you
Yeah.
now. So you go to that section when you need to go to that section.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I went to a couple sections, but I want to leave that one. There's hope. There's hope. There's always hope. Cup is always
Yes.
half full, never half empty.
Yes. Never have a
Never.
boy, I tell you.
Yeah.
Oh boy. You know, one of
Yeah.
the things you've spoken about is being prepared. Knowledge is power, as well as adding value to lives one lesson at a time.
Yes.
And and
Yes. Yes.
I note that nothing is laissez faire with you. It's very intentional, it's very deliberate, it's very strategic. Um, and you do things with an end in mind. You know, you've spoken about your parents and the impact that they've had on the decisions that you make and the life that you have, the foundation that you have set. You've spoken about your children. Now, um, tell us a little bit about your family life away from your parents.
Lord, I nearly said, Lord, Mrs. So,
It's okay.
so, so let me start at the end. I'm a divorcee, and that's good or bad. That's what it is.
It is what it
Um,
is.
it is what it is. But being, it's a smile. Every December, I'm in a quandary because December is when my parents got married. Last December, they were married for 57 years, and
Wow, congrats.
you have to joke about some bad things. I look at my mother one December. I went to church today and they asked for persons to stand, and I said to her, Lord, you're adding another year. Is when me I gotta start count again. She said, you don't know what to do. Go out there and find a husband. So, you know, and
Your mother.
and yeah, light moments, serious things, light
Yeah.
moments. But I got
Yes.
married, and it it ended after 8 years. I can talk about it now, and I'm the best person to give advice about marriage. It ended after 8 years, and I always tell people, I didn't want this end, but I don't have regrets, because if I regret my marriage, I have to regret my children, and I can't, because I have two lovely children. I have a girl and a boy. My son
Yeah.
is nothing like me, so reserved like his grandfather. Seen and hardly heard, except there's a basketball game going on.
Yeah, I
And
know.
my daughter is me in the mirror. So you imagine every day I have a new challenge. Very vocal, speaks up, challenges the teachers, but very disciplined and so on. My son followed my sporting footsteps. So he played
Yes.
basketball
Basketball.
as a
Yes.
youth national representative for Jamaica. But my daughter is happy looking in the mirror. So different children, but they are both they bring joy. They're good children. And I've
Yes.
never had to go to school for any disciplinary issues. Um, my son fell behind a little, and I took his basketball and his shoes for a term, and his grades, his average went up 20 points. So there are times when you have to make tough decisions.
Motivation.
That's what my
Yes,
father would have,
yes, yeah, yes.
you know, and right. So like I said, I don't regret losing a marriage because I would have to regret my children. But one of the lessons that I've learned, and I share it with a lot of people, and believe it or not, I encourage people. People come to me and they're having issues, and I say, listen, work on it because separation
Yes,
is hard for the children. Very, 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 very hard. You have to
yes.
manage it's a whole new thing, and it takes a toll on you as well. Um, I had the support of family and so on, but what about persons who may not have that support? And
Exactly.
so I encourage people. But one of the things that I've been saying to my children is values. If when you decide to get into a partnership with someone, if the values aren't the same, you're gonna have to walk away because um, it, in my case, and I believe in other cases, marriages break because values are fundamentally different. And if your values are fundamentally different, there's always going to be a dispute, always going to be unhappiness, always going to be arguments, just
Differences.
differences.
Yes,
And
yes.
and I was not prepared to change, and the other person may not be prepared to change. And so I think I dropped the ball a little in looking at values and being honest about values not being congruent, being different, and hoping that values will change and persons will change. It doesn't work. You are who you are and you're never going to change.
Mhm.
Old dog, new tricks, not at all. Old tree bending, not at all. Um,
Yeah.
it's an old
The-
bark, it's not gonna bend because if it bends, it's
the-
gonna break,
For
right?
break. Yes, yes, yes.
So,
So let me
um,
ask you a little. Your both children are now at tertiary level in their education because I was looking at your daughter recently and I was thinking that's not the baby. That's not the baby anymore. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
she's they're both now in uni. What are they
yeah.
studying?
All right. So my son is on his last 5 subjects in engineering. My daughter just completed first year computer science. So, like my dad and my mom, they are natural science specialists. I'm a social
Yes,
science
the
specialist.
scientists. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
I'm
Wow.
I'm not totally social science because I'm strong in statistics as well, which is a science.
Exactly.
It's maths. My mom was my maths teacher.
Yes.
My dad
Geography.
taught
Yeah, yeah.
biology and chemistry, so my library was at home. That's the plus of having 2 teachers.
Teachers.
You may not get
Yes.
paid a lot, but the brain is at home. And when other people
Oh,
are struggling to
yes.
the library, um,
You're
we
good.
have the brains at home, and we have parents who saw the need to invest in a set of encyclopedia. So
Encyclopedia.
we had
People
it
don't know what
all
those
at
are
home.
now, we know.
Daddy still has them. I wanted to show them out the other day, and he said, "What are you doing with
No,
those?
no.
Put them aside." But
Yes.
um,
Oh,
but one of the things I want to say though is that even when your marriage breaks, it's a break between you and the person, and it has nothing to do with the children.
with the children.
So unlike persons, some persons keep, they stay bitter and they don't speak to the other person and so on. I had the pleasure of laughing heartily and sharing with mommy a joke that we went to the PTA because we did and we do a lot of things together.
The things together,
So we
yes.
went to the PTAs together. They spent a lot of time with him. People think
No
that
animosity.
they
Yes.
thought that we were still married. So my daughter had a problem, and both of us went to school. The principal was my mom's friend at St. Hugh's, and I sat in the office, and my ex-husband sat in the office, her dad, and we're sitting almost. I think Abby might have been in the middle, and she said, she said, "Sir, I have to say this to you, you are so fortunate to be married to my friend's daughter. My friend is my special friend, and I want you to treasure this benefit. And none of us said anything. I smiled and he nodded and we left. And I said, Mommy, you know, said them think we still married. Your friend declared that, you know, and we
But it's the
took
respect that you both have for each
at her
other and your
graduation
children.
at her graduation we took pictures together, and he posted them on his status. I didn't, and the world was excited to know that, you know, you guys are getting back together. No, we have agreed to disagree, and we have
Yeah,
agreed
agree.
that in the interest of the children, we even now we do not disagree on discipline. I have full support, and you know, so you can agree to disagree, you can separate, you can move your separate ways, but there are some things that must happen for the benefit of the children, for the benefit, for the sanity of the
Yes,
children. And so
yes.
no decision goes, if you know my son comes to me at age 22, I said, did you talk to your father? If he goes to his father said, did you talk to your mother? So you know, we have, it's,
That's good.
you have to continue, you have to, Sanya and audience, is there a bad thing that happens? Is there no good that can come
Good thing
from?
can come out of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
you
I
know,
like I like the mantra.
can anything good come from Samaria?
That's it.
Yes, Jesus.
Nazareth, you know.
Yes, yeah. So
God is good. God is good,
awesome,
and
awesome.
it's important that, and I go back to the word, you're intentional about your actions because you know the
Yes,
repercussions of those actions. You
yes.
know the long-term effects. And
But you must
so
plan. You must
exactly.
plan. You must
Yes,
plan.
yes.
Planning comes from, it's a biblical principle. So
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
started by saying, for I know the
The
plans
plan.
I have for you.
Yeah, for you.
And you mentioned something because you said something about planning. You said something about unexpected end. That very scripture ends with the words
Word.
talking
And
about an
expected it.
expected end. And
Yes,
it's a
yes,
positive expectation.
yes, yes.
It's to prosper you and not to harm you.
Harm
You
you.
know, it's to make sure you're in good health and all these things. So,
Yes.
you know, let us plan,
Yes, yes.
you know, plan
Oh,
for yourself.
I, t- I tell you, the teacher is preaching today.
It's a setup.
Yes.
It's a setup. It's
Yeah.
a setup.
You know,
But I'm
and
happy. I'm always happy to share. You know, when you share, you bring hope to a lot of people who feel hopeless. You know, it's possible. I do have plans to write. It's a, I don't know if I want to call it. It's a biography, but
mhm,
in my lifetime, I've had a lot of friends, and I've friends who have struggled and survived and really surpassed hopes and expectations. And I want to share those stories in one
yes.
book. You know, I
Mm,
want to share those stories. And I, for all of these persons I've been a part, every single one of them has called on me at some point for help, and I've helped them and they have succeeded. But I realize also that I've really kept friends with the friends who have values that are consistent with
sent
my
with
own
years.
values.
Yes.
I've really, the
Yes.
long-term friendships are those friendships that have survived. And so, you know, show me a company, I tell you who you are. It's so, you know, it's so good. You know,
Yes.
a friend of
Yes.
mine said to me, and again, we have to joke about these things because she had gone through a divorce and she was speaking about searching for a new partner, which a lot of people don't speak about, you know. But you know,
Yes.
she said to
Yes.
me, she said, you know, she said, oh, let me just tell you this. I've made a decision. She said, I'm no longer going to shop on the clearance rack. She said, I'm heading to Neiman Marcus. I'm heading,
Yes. Top
and
shelf.
she started listing some places. And, you know, we don't like to talk about these things and we think that
Mm,
there's no humility and so on. But what is wrong with wanting the very best for yourself? What's wrong
exactly.
with wanting the nicest clothes? What's wrong with wanting, you know, the nicest cars? And a lot of people try to make Christians feel bad when you succeed.
Mm.
oh, you drive a big and, but, why should you not want the best? Why should you not portray success? Why should you not? Why should you not?
God
So,
says we should be the head and not the
yeah,
tail.
why
He
should you
expects us
not?
to be at the
Why should
forefront
you
of
feel
success.
embarrassed that you are successful? No, and I grew up with very humble parents. So I've learned, just as I've learned diplomacy through that international relations degree, I've learned to say the worst thing in the nicest way. And I've learned to get your attention to the fact that I believe I am the expert in this field, without saying it, and I used to tell my team, be confident. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to say to people, listen, and ask me, I ask you, I tell me, I tell you. I'm not
Because
asking you, I'm telling you.
you're
I,
the source.
yes, I study, I know. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. And if they continue, I say, all right, put your money on the table and be prepared to lose it because I'm competitive as well. So I say,
Yes.
hey, remember, we're going to compete and I'm not going to lose.
To talk about competing, do you remember when we had a cricket match at Irving Hall, right out in the that area there? Oh yeah, we did our
Yeah,
best.
yeah, I batted.
Yeah,
So
yes.
now your listeners, your viewers know that you played cricket.
Um,
You
uh-uh.
dabbled. Sorry, you dabbled
I
in
dabbled.
cricket. You dabbled in
I did.
cricket.
I am more of a spectator, and yeah, Sabina Park and what have you, and the radio. But yeah, cricket has been there. But um, Cecile, this has been a joyful occasion of talking with you, listening to the gems that you have dropped, giving us ideas about how we go about our life, about how we achieve in life, how we maintain
Yeah.
our values, how we maintain our spiritual connection with God in the corporate world, in our family life, in our community, how we advocate for others, and how we don't think that it's all about us. It will only be about us. It can't just be about the one person. My
Mhm.
my audience are talking, and I can see them very motivational. Wow, such an intriguing and motivating story. God wants our very best, very
Mhm.
diplomatic.
Mhm.
I know that they would have been impressed by your story. They would have been excited to have heard your story. And I'm happy that you have been quite transparent with us. And in all of this, it's all about ensuring that your God-given talents are developed for
Mhm.
the honor and glory of God.
Yes.
It's all about for others. You have been very intentional about your life. I something came to me. You and I went to XED, and I never realized that you had gone to XED. And it so happened that we did some of the same subjects because I did econs. And
Was it with
I
there was a lady named Patricia Northover,
no,
and
I don't even remember who taught me
she was very good.
econ.
She actually taught us some techniques that were like,
Yeah.
she taught us how to eliminate in multiple choice and then choose the right answer.
Is
So
the
even
right
if you didn't
answer.
know the answer, she
You,
taught us
yeah, process
techniques.
of
Yes,
elimination. Yes,
yes.
yes, yes,
So the
yeah,
group that
yeah.
I hung with, all of them have been so successful. We have all been. There was a girl named Deborah Calendar. She's one of the top physiotherapists now. There was Derek Deslandis, who is Dr. Deslandis, who is the head of the College of Agricultural Sciences and Education.
Is that in
Uh,
Portland? Is that
yes,
case?
yes,
Yeah.
he was brilliant, brilliant person.
Mm.
He has a story on his own, of his own, having left school with two subjects, two CXC subjects, and just getting all the way to a doctoral degree. Then there was
Determination.
Yvonne Barnett. She's now, a lawyer with one of the ministries. And there was a friend of mine who actually went to school with me, Jacinth Clayton, who is really
I know
senior
Jesse.
in marketing in the US now. And I look at how carefully I had selected those persons and how all of us have become successful in our own fields, and all of us
You,
have done it, going the long, hard road. So, I have no regrets. I have no
yeah.
regrets. And next time, don't let
It's
me speak the story so that I cry. Don't let me do that.
no,
But
you
that,
know what? It's a and that's the authenticity, that's the transparency, that's that's just who you are.
yeah,
You and the beauty of this program is that it allows it's relatable, and it's not just it's not sus, it's substance that reaches and connects with the audience, and
get with it, Tanya. It's
yeah.
not fake story. It's not fake news, man.
No, no, we're not in the alternative truth. Not
It's
at
not
all.
fake news.
No, no, no. We're
It's
talking about
real.
substance. Yeah, we're
It's
talking
not
about
bought. It's
substance.
real. Yes.
It's real.
Yes.
I hope my audience have also picked up on the fact that you are very, and I'm using the word intentional. It's not because I don't have other words, but you're very deliberate and very intentional in everything that you do. You observed, and then you chose your friends, and we are always encouraged to choose people who have the same values and choose people who will encourage us to be the best of who we are and what we are, and you were very deliberate about that. And um my
So,
mother,
so I want to.
entrepreneurial you,
Can you
yes,
see it?
yes, entrepreneurial
Yes,
you.
it's kind of the
It's
entrepreneurial
fading
you.
in and out, but it's entrepreneurial you, yes,
Yes, it's this is what I'm reading because we have to read. Um,
yes,
we have to read more and watch less TV.
yes, yes,
Because
yes.
documented stories are well thought out stories. And this book is written by an author called Dorie Clark,
Mhm,
Dorie. She has three books, and the first one, I read the first one when I was planning to make a transition to this career,
mhm.
right? And the first one was about rebranding yourself. It's
Mm,
rebranding. It's called, I think it's saying reimagine you, right?
yes.
And she talks about how you prepare yourself to become the brand that you want to be. And then she has another book which I shipped in and the shippers cannot find, but I guess they're gonna find it. It's called Stand Out. Stand Out,
Out.
right? And how do you stand out of the crowd? And standing out brings you the kind of attention that you need to propel
Positive.
you to other levels. And this book is called Entrepreneurial You because we have that entrepreneurial spirit in us, but we really do not monetize our talent. So that's what the title says. It says Entrepreneurial You, monetize your expertise, create multiple income streams, and thrive.
Wow.
Because my parents struggled, but I told myself very early, I ain't struggling. Nope. No,
Mhm, mhm.
and I listened to a Jewish author and speaker, motivational speaker called Rabbi Daniel Lapin, Lapin. And he talks about why the Jews are successful, why they are successful. And he talks about reading. He doesn't have televisions in his home, and he encourages his children to read, but he talks about family time, which we had a lot of,
Yes.
eating together, and the conversation at the table being about investing, growing your funds, education, what you need to do to
Generational
move.
wealth.
But he says, Each of us has at least one talent, and we know that we get the talents.
Mm, Bible.
We get the talents, but
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even realize what your talent is.
Mhm,
So your talent could simply be your voice. Every
mhm.
time I speak and do a radio interview, people are like, your voice. My son, people tell him your voice. So your talent could be your voice. And you can monetize that voice. You can do voiceovers, you can do host events, you can. Terry Carell Reed is doing a
Oh,
big job
oh
and,
yes.
and just finished hosting big Harvard event,
Oh
being
yes.
recognized with that voice, that voice.
Yes.
And you're
And she
talking
has a
about
book, The
someone,
Brand Compass.
yes, who
Yeah.
studied veterinary science in Cuba, only
Surgery.
to be told in Jamaica you have to study all over again. And she took the decision, absolutely not.
Oh,
So recognize your talent. If your talent is encouraging people, you can be a motivational speaker. I
exactly.
bought I bought myself a podcast set because I'll be podcasting.
Of
I don't know
course.
when mega start, but mega start.
You will start.
Dory
You are
Clark
not one
says,
to not start.
Dory Clark says, I'm gonna start. I'm just working out the timing. Dory Clark says she has 7 streams of income. And this is someone who woke up one morning and was told by HR, you no longer have a job. We have to cut staff and we're cutting you. And she wondered, how will I pay my bills? And she started reading and speaking to persons. She has 7 streams of income. She's an author, she's a motivational speaker. She writes courses, so she has online courses. She has her email listing, so she does affiliate marketing, you know, a lot of passive income. So it's not too late. It's never too late,
And every day
you know.
we get an opportunity to rebrand ourselves and to make ourselves visible in a positive
Yes,
way.
we do. We do.
Uh, I think it's very important that you're my guest today on the third year of the anniversary of my program, It Is Possible Tuesday.
Ah, really?
Uh, it is.
Oh,
And
that was the quiz. That was the quiz question. I
yes,
thought I thought you were
yes.
celebrating the last day of the month in which your mom was born.
No, 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 no. It is actually the month 3 years ago in the pandemic that I began this podcast, and I began the podcast on Zoom. And we've moved from Zoom. This is now 1 year, I think, that we have begun our live streaming. And I am so happy that you are the person that happened to be in the month of March, May, in the month of May, dropping all these nuggets about being strategic, about being intentional, about branding yourself, and about being top of your game. And I'm hoping that my audience,
Yes.
my listeners will, be taking on board what you have said. I know they have been inspired by you. Somebody is saying, congratulations. Thank you very much, Des. Thank you. You know, but I'm hoping that they will use today's session as a launching pad for their dreams, for their um, purpose, and make it
Yes.
happen. You
It's
know,
possible.
um, it is possible. Let me
It
tell you,
is
it is
possible.
possible. It is possible. We are an hour and 18 minutes into our session, and normally we end in an hour's time. But I didn't want to cut it short. I didn't want to stop. Um, I am going to have to do this something else because I had some people bring me up to date on what they have been doing since we last spoke to them. But I am going to use that to launch my next session in June. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a top-notch session with my very good friend Dr. Cecile Dennis, a phenomenal woman, a trailblazer, a woman of standards, a woman of value, my colleague's daughter, and also my friend. I am happy that you have been with us this evening, Cecile, and all the very best in all the ventures that you put your hand to and you get involved in. We pray God's continued blessings on you and your family, and may your children continue to bring you joy. You know, it has been wonderful talking to you. I am so happy that we reconnected and we're able to get today on a good start.
I
Thank
will
you
tell
ever
my
so much.
children. I will tell my children, and they're gonna say we don't have a choice.
That's so true. That is so true. That is so true.
I think I may have, I don't know, power. The power went. I'm a little
Is
dark,
it?
but
Oh, wow.
I think, I don't know, maybe,
It's
maybe.
possible. It is possible.
Let me see if
Anything
I
is
can
possible.
use
You're back.
technology, use the phone
Yes, yes.
technology to give me a little
Exactly.
light.
Exactly. But thank you ever so much, Cecile, for being my guest today. The month that I'm celebrating 3 years of It Is Possible Tuesdays with Sanyo. God has plans for all of us. They don't happen at the same time, but you've left us with quite a lot of strategies. Surround yourself with people who have the same values, who will cheer you on and who will push you
Absolutely.
and challenge you. Have a voice for others, advocate for others. We are people persons. We're not about being selfish. We must have a plan. We must be strategic. We must be intentional and we must work hard. There are no shortcuts to excellence. Ensure that we build on the values that our parents have given unto us and we pay it forward.
Yeah.
Definitely, this has been a wonderful, wonderful session. Thank you ever so much. May God bless you, Cecile. My guest today,
Same to you.
ladies and gentlemen, uh, it is Possible Tuesdays. We had Dr. Cecile Dennis. And I want to remind you that God has plans for you. But remember, be a dreamer, a doer, a thinker. See possibility everywhere. Because you are alive, everything is possible. Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible.
Impossible.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Have a very good evening, and I'll see you next month when we will have another interesting, exciting guest that you will want to hear. Have a good evening, everybody, and see you next month. Thank you.
Jesus, all things are possible. I can mount on wings like eagles and soar. When I call on Jesus, mountains are gonna fall. 'Cause he'll move heaven and earth to come rescue me when I call.
Thank you.
Thank